Hey Games Workshop, it's me, Ash. I have one thing I would really like you to stop doing, and that's apologizing. So what do I mean by that? Well, I don't usually get up on a soapbox, but I'm worked up today. I'm amped up. I feel like the guy watching the Emperor walk around with no clothes on sometimes. And there's a reason for that. I'm a student of history. I look at trends. I watch the business of tabletop gaming. I've been part of the business of tabletop gaming for a long time, and I feel like I'm seeing a movie I've already seen happen again. And it's pissing me off. And the reason it's pissing me off is today, Games Workshop, like, before anything's even really out, decided to write a big, giant, jokey, very funny, very well crafted marketing message about balancing the leagues of Votann. And Ash, you say, Ash, well, you played a bunch of games with the leagues of Votann, you have the army, are you mad about this? Is that what you're mad about? They've nerfed your shit, they took it away from you. No, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about a single rule in any army book I've ever purchased, ever. I've been around through this too long. I remember 2nd edition Eldar. I remember 3rd edition Eldar. I remember 4th and 5th edition Grey Knights. I remember Imperial Knights when they first came out. I remember, I don't know, Eldar fleets and Battlefleet Gothic. I remember a million different things where there was something that came out and it was really good and it was the best thing in show. And then there was nothing said about it. It just stayed the way it was, and people figured it out, and they adapted, and the outrage died down, and they were still really good, and on paper they were really good, and they had really good known things that they could do. And then shit just worked itself out, and all through that, you know what happened? The company that made that stuff put it out there and just sat there silently saying that stuff stands on its own, and we're not going to engage with that. And I get that's the old Games Workshop. That's the Games Workshop that didn't comment online or talk or engage with its fans and its customers. And that's a whole other problem. And don't get me wrong, I think that there's definitely a middle ground here between never saying anything and never apologizing for anything if you've done something wrong and trying to make everyone happy all the time, especially people who aren't interested in being happy. They're interested in pointing out flaws. Their hobby is to critique and pick apart absolutely everything, and trying to actually deal with the consequences of that is ice skating uphill. So I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about another miniature wargaming company. And this isn't to call anybody out, but this is a history lesson. And the history lesson goes like this. Back in 2013 and 14, you could walk into a convention like Adepticon, one of the biggest miniature wargaming conventions in the world, and there was almost as many tables of people playing War Machine and Hordes as there was of people playing Warhammer 40,000. That's a big thing. This is the two big swinging dicks in wargaming at the time. And they had equal participation. People playing games. People playing that game competitively. And of course, that meant that they also had equal noise. They had people discussing and picking apart things. And the culture of miniature wargaming was forever kind of changed by that. Because you had a company not really focusing on the competitive side of things, which was Games Workshop at the time. And what they did was they took cues from the community, and they allowed community to run these events. Things like the ITC sprouted out where the customers themselves took the property and made it competitive. And then you had Privateer Press, and their whole goal was make everything competitive. The game is competitive. We're going to write competitive rule sets. We're going to balance things every 3 months. And what happened was the tonal shift of the conversation and the marketing for Privateer Press became all about one way to play, and it was to play competitively, and everything else kind of went by the wayside. And Games Workshop tried to stay more rounded. They let the community handle the competitive stuff. That kind of washed their hands of it, and then they would address sort of core mechanical issues or things that were just not working overall. And so you had two very different takes on competitive miniature wargaming. You had two companies going at it differently. One was basically allowing the fans to handle it and work out that side of it by themselves. The other one was very much in the thick of it with them. And over time, what happened? Well, when that was the only thing that got talked about and the only thing people seemed to be interested in, the people that weren't interested in that faded to the background. And then slowly but surely, that was all that was left. The people telling you the most important thing is that you have a balanced game, and then the people in the company deciding that must be the most important thing, forgot that you don't get paid every time somebody plays a game. You get paid every time somebody buys a miniature or a paint or a book. And the conversation drifted so far away. They gripped the wheel harder, they doubled down, they started balancing the game every 3 to 6 months, and then more customers decided, well, this is the only thing we're talking about. There's a massive bloated extended range of miniatures, there's tons and tons of army books come out, and then they dropped Mark III. And Mark III basically was designed to reincorporate or revitalize the game. And all it did was basically make it so that you had certain things that became good, certain things that became not so good, and everybody who was concerned about game balance went, well, we won't buy the ones that aren't good off the bat, and we will buy the ones that are good. And you had a game basically stall. No one was buying the miniatures for their physical properties anymore. People were only buying the miniatures for their metaphysical properties. Because the people that used to buy them because they look cool or had a cool story had all wandered off because no one was talking to them anymore, no one was making things for those people. And that led to where we are right now. If you took a walk through a game store in 2015, through a game store, like an independent game store in 2022, you would see a vastly different landscape of just geography along the wall. Because a person walking into those stores that doesn't know anything about the two companies that were represented would think they were the same size, right? Would think that by square footage of stuff on a wall, these companies must be competing with each other. And in 7 years since then, that landscape is drastically different. The walls are covered in Games Workshop product. There's a few other companies here and there that are out there, but there's no other company with a giant landscape of, products and SKUs, because distributors eventually, weren't carrying them as much. Stores stopped carrying them. And when that game relaunch in Mark III didn't go super well, it started to peter away. Now, do I think Games Workshop's in any danger of that happening to them? No, they are the market. They have their own retail chain. They don't need independent retailers to carry them. But this is the same movie. You're talking too much about balance. There's balanced data slates for games that don't need balanced data slates. There's not a gajillion people playing them competitively. I don't care if Kill Team's balanced. I don't care if Warcry is balanced. I don't care if any of these games are balanced. Who is telling you that this is important, and why is it a big chunk of the feed in Warhammer community? You guys used to be cool. You used to just lay products out there and go, bam, this is the product, deal with it. Now you're just saying, oh, sorry, this wasn't right. We're going to track this many games. We're going to watch results of that. There are so few people that care about that, but it takes up so much of the bandwidth of the conversation online that you are losing people talking about other things. I am a person who is excited about the physical properties of the things that you sell. Those miniatures that I painted 20 years ago, I still have most of them and love them. And don't get me wrong, I used to be that guy. I was the competitive wargamer between 2001 and 2010. All I cared about was what it did. That was the only thing I cared about. But I eventually got over myself and realized that I was basically playing less games and having less positive interactions with hobbyists because all I cared about was the outcome of the game and not the experience of the game. You guys at Games Workshop, you get paid by experience-hungry people. Part of those people want to see the outcome of the game as their experience. That's great. But there's other people out there who just want to have cool toy soldiers, fun explosions in the battlefield, and read cool books. You make products for everybody. The experience of painting them, building them, and collecting them should be equally important and equally valuable. And yes, you're going to say, oh yeah, we definitely market to all those people too. You do, but the conversation happening online is way over dominated by the outcomes of games and way less focused on all of the positive things that happen outside of the game table. So that's it. Stop apologizing. Stop trying to balance your stuff. You're doing it too often. I've seen this movie before. I saw how it happened for the last company that tried to grip onto this thing and make it a major priority. And it's not healthy. It is the sign of kowtowing to your customers. You don't need to do that. You are the market. You are the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room when it comes to miniature wargaming. Be proud of what you make. If it's too powerful, who cares? Release something else in 6 months anyway, because that's what you do. You drive out new releases so fast that it doesn't matter if the Leagues of Votann are the most powerful thing ever. Just make a more powerful thing coming up. Make it equally cool. Balance to the last thing that you wrote. There's a million ways to skin this cat that isn't saying sorry and putting yourself into an endless cycle of trying to make people happy who are professionally unhappy, who will never be happy with what you make, and for every single time you do anything, it will be a mistake. Make your shit, drop it out there into the world, and walk away. You don't need to apologize and talk about everything that you do, but stop jerking the wheel around. Any company that's thinking about doing this, you need to balance things all the time, try and make people happy. It's a trap. Don't do it. It doesn't end well. That's Ash. That's my rant. I'm signing off.